Predators, folks, far and wide, it's a privilege to have your company once more. As you can hear in my tone of voice, I'm excited as can be with my guest seated here opposite me. This is the Apex Predator, talking about the various mindsets, the thoughts, the notions, the practices to help you gain a sense of perspective on becoming an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit, and your very own army of one. I promise what I'm about to say will be in an economy of dialogue. But I'm going to present to you a question. What is a good man? Let that simmer in the back of your mind. Jordan Peterson obviously had the brilliant explanation for this. A good man is a dangerous man. Now, define dangerous. Capacity for violence, whilst also having the ability to control that capacity for violence. But it even extends beyond that. There's a book I really like, and I mean it. It was first revealed unto me through the works of the late Stanley Ralph Ross, who wrote Batman in the 60s. It's a book by Miyamoto Musashi called The Book of Five Rings. In it, he spoke about the way of strategy. Warriors have a vast knowledge of skill. They have a vast knowledge of abilities. Think of the samurai, of which Musashi was one. They wrote haiku. They did calligraphy. But what struck me most about his teachings, in the strive to be a good man with the capacity of violence while also having the facility to control it, in that process of learning, do not think of victory, which is ahead. Do not think of defeat, which is behind you, but only of the here and now, cutting and killing. In that process, you learn what works for you and what doesn't, don't you? Now, while I'm saying that, I'm sure there are viewers who have been looking in the opposite square, and I can already hear the peanut gallery already uttering certain phrases. Washout, menace to society. And for the wannabe tough guys out there, they must be thinking that this fellow here across from me has probably had more women under him than a nautical toilet seat. But let me flip the script. Will Jorenson is a man of the ages. A loving father, a rich imagination, more than what Dr. Seuss or even Willy Wonka, if he were a real person, could sire. A master builder, and when he speaks, we listen. He's an insightful mind who has indeed paid his debt to society, but if you want a good man, this is a gent who I want by my side when the shit hits the fan. So without further ado, Billy J., it's been too long, fella. Welcome back.
Yeah. Thank you. What a nice introduction. I'm always taken back when people say nice stuff about me.
Well, then
it's all true.
Then let's address the elephant in the room.
Sure.
The last time that you were here, back when the show was called Having a Cuppa, and I remember it so vividly, you jokingly said you even had more names than Lucifer Morningstar.
Yeah.
But you went through a torrid time, and all of a sudden you had a road to Damascus moment. What happened?
You could tell. Yeah. Well, I had 11 years of continuous sobriety. I built a lot of my reputation on sobriety and recovery. In the rooms, we have a guy, he said, I OD'd on sobriety, too much.
Yeah.
Building a reputation around wanting to be somebody in the recovery movement, having a name, having a voice, having an opinion. And I grew too much on self. Life is tricky. Devil's got a lot of tricks. And even though they're all old ones, he don't have anything that's new. Everything he's tried on me, he's tried on you. There's nothing new in his book. They still work. Right. And selfishness and living on a high horse of self-centeredness brought me to my knees, and that's really what it was. I had a deconversion moment. I think a lot of people may go through a deconversion moment where they realize the God of their fathers or what they were taught about God might be wrong. And I went through a lot of that, and in sobriety around 5 years, I had a deconversion moment where I let the God of my childhood go completely, but it left me empty of God completely. I became a true I don't kid around about being an atheist. I found no proof for the existence of God, and that's all an atheist is they see lack of sufficient evidence for the existence of God. And I spent another 6 years in recovery without any type of spirituality. It was all knowledge-based recovery. So everything I could put my hands on that could take me to a road of I got myself this place, right? I ended up relapsing after 11 years. I had 11 years of continuous sobriety, and I relapsed on narcotics. And I took a pill, and it totally consumed me for a matter of months, and I was unable to let that go without the power of something greater than myself. And I opened my mind up to what could be. Forgot everything I thought I knew about atheism, everything I thought I knew about God, and was able to have my own God experience. It was great.
And that was exactly what was told unto me. Believe it or not, I was an atheist myself for a long while in my teens. Yeah. And as we have come to know today, religion has become politicized. And when you were here, I believe, the last time, and I said this as well, take the religion and the politics out of the matter and just build a relationship. And that is what worked for me, and what I'm expecting. Well, I shouldn't say expect, but what rather my hope is that people find God for themselves. Even the big book says, God as we know him. That is self-explanatory. And, I said this before as well. Do you think that for any given mere moment that life will be all colorful and rosy? Of course not. We are still going to go through these ups and downs and left and rights and skewers and whatnot, but at least you don't have to do it alone. And it's a discovery every given day. Would you say that you're discovering more and more as each day goes by?
More is definitely being revealed. And, you touch on something really interesting with the world or our lives not always being a bed of roses, right? I mean, mankind in itself, we spent a millennium of nothing but heartache. Everything was a struggle for a million years, however long humans have been on the planet. We're not ready for soft, cushy, no struggle yet. Our wiring isn't ready for the easy road. And so if we don't have it naturally, if we don't have a natural struggle, we're going to create one up in our minds, because that's the way that we're wired. And so everything becomes difficult, even though it doesn't have to be. We're just wired for struggle. We're wired to thrive in struggle. We need challenges, and the food struggles over, the relationship struggles over. Procreation isn't, you can get on a phone and find whatever. You can have food delivered to your house. Everybody has a soft couch. I know it's a little bit different in Africa, but it's still better there than it's ever been. Everywhere on the planet, it's a lot more squishy than what our human mind is wired for.
I agree with you. Absolutely. And it's even in science, we are drawn towards struggle, and not just in the terms of history. I'm sure you must be familiar with the MAOA gene, right?
Maybe.
The MAOA gene is colloquially known as the warrior gene. And it's that small little bit in your mind which makes you go animal in the time of when your F3 response, your fight, your flight, and your fear response kicks into overdrive. That's why they think the MAOA gene from a scientific standpoint is what drives a person to commit murder, or even a killer to become a serial killer, which is it's a little bit oversimplified. I think rather it's a spiritual imbalance where a serial killer is concerned. But what you had said as well is specifically with, we are drawn towards the uncomfortable, and we get that motion to excel once we throw ourselves into that midst of the struggle. That is the MAOA gene kicking into overdrive. So there's much like with autism, people like to think it's a disorder. I don't think by any given measure the gene is a disorder. It's like dimethyltryptamine. It's natural. It's found in science. It's in the
Yeah.
animal species. It's in the mammalian part of the brain.
Yeah. And you know it from running, right? Like you get up there and you don't want to run until you start doing it.
Exactly.
And then there's a moment where you realize you're alive, and it's that way with every struggle that we put ourselves through.
Absolutely.
The hard part is finding the correct balance of that. Finding that purpose driven part of that struggle, because we don't have to have it. You watch it with everybody. I don't know, like all the famous people that have everything you think you want, and they're fucking going crazy.
Mm. And then they divorce 2 years later. Jeez.
Yeah, it's definitely not because their bed's too hard.
Or not squeaking.
Yeah. We're insanely driven for struggle.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. And why do you think a lot of people, and I'm afraid I don't see it happening in this country this time soon, but why a lot of people have gravitated towards Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to exercise that struggle. And it will humble you, I'm sure, because I've seen a lot of those fights. As you know, one of my countrymen won the middleweight title 2 weekends ago against Israel Adesanya in the UFC. And I can't help but feel the fact that once you step inside that octagon, you are going to get your nose to the grinding stone. And I'm led to understand your kids as well are in BJJ, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's mandatory till they're out of high school. my daughter included. I have a 6-year-old little girl. She's in jiu-jitsu as well. I think it's a service that I can provide for them, whether they realize it or not.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Have you thought about doing it as well? Or
Oh yeah,
really?
I thought about it.
I think you'll do very well.
I think I would do okay. I'm a little stiff, but for me, it comes down to priority.
Of course, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Bill, tell me, how has your mindset grown from the time that you decided to go the God route?
I feel like I'm a lot more open-minded to what is possible. But I still struggle with old thinking. And so I came up a certain way in a belief about God. And it was kind of a twofold thing. It was, I had the Santa Claus God that will provide everything I need as long as I behave correctly. But also the punishing God that if I don't, then there's a certain place for me, and I'm not getting into the good side of his graces. And so I come in and out of that, but the God of my own understanding has really shifted, because my understanding was that of what it was when I was a kid, even though it wasn't my own experience, right? I kept trying to have your experience with God. You could tell me what happened with you, and then if that happened to me, then I know that was God.
Sure.
I would know, okay, there's God. But I never had your experience.
Naturally.
I had all these other experiences, but I didn't want to contribute that to God, because I still kind of thought that for me to depend on anything outside of myself was, sort of weak. It was okay for you, and I didn't view you as a weak person for depending on God, but I would view myself as a weak person for depending upon God. Something I can't touch, taste, smell, see, make believe, because I don't believe in unicorns, right? And I have the same amount of evidence. And so I'm open-minded to that, and looking at synchronicities and situations that could be coincidence, but why wouldn't it be a blessing in my favor? I take a look at the relationship I have with my wife, and I look at the relationship that a lot of other people have with their wives, and I wonder why I'm so lucky. You know, why am I so lucky to have a partner that fits me so well? Zero drama, you know, really supportive as far as the direction I want to go. You know, doesn't get in the way of me being a father, has her own plan, is strong on her own right, beautiful, you know, all these attributes of a great partner. And then the way that we met, the way that we came together, you know, the plan that we've had that's come together, it's really spiritual. It's really beautiful. And, you know, have all these things that I choose, you know, and really believing in God is a choice. It has to be. And
Truly.
I come in and out of it. You know, one of the things that I'm thinking about now is that perhaps there, along with God, there is a devil, and that there is a negative spiritual force pulling me to try to convince me of these other things to keep me away from my birthright and blessings. Could definitely possibly be true if God is real. Perhaps the negative side of that. Napoleon Hill wrote a great book called Outwitting the Devil.
Oh, yes.
That such a good insight on
Very.
the inner workings of the negative part of the positive, you know,
And the
force there.
audiobook version is scary.
Yeah, it's really
Scary.
good. That's how I do most of my books, is through audio. There's a few, like I bought Outwitting the Devil. I listened to it, and then like that was one of the books that I studied for a while, where I listened to it over and over, and then I finally end up buying it, and I read along with it, and I mark stuff out and try to quote stuff. Extreme Ownership was a book that I used, like the Alcoholics Anonymous. The Big Book is a book that I study. There's a few that are like that, and Outwitting the Devil is one of them, just to have a perspective on how I'm being tricked with all this shiny shit using the primitive part of my brain. And there's an actual force. You know, it's not just me. It's not just me being stupid. That's part of it. It's me being naive. That's part of it. But when there's a trickster out there that's building the shiny signs to get me off the highway, saying, look, you're tired. Here's a rest stop. Look, you're hungry. Here's a restaurant. Get off course. Come over here into the woods.
Exactly.
Where we can slow you down on your destination to greatness.
Absolutely. And I just want to throw in for good measure to my audience, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. You know the writer, Think and Grow Rich? Outwitting the Devil was the last book he wrote in his lifetime, but in the express will of his last will and testament would the book be released because it was so ahead of its time. And of course, Hill was thought of as a snake oil salesman with his various thoughts on how to grow and think rich. And the moment Outwitting the Devil hit the shelves, a lot of people started to look the other way. So much so, in fact, that a certain writer by the name of Steve Dace, better known as a journalist, would write the book A Nefarious Plot. How's that for a little bit of anthropology for you in that regard? And exactly what Will is saying. There are thoughts, there are notions, there are outside forces out there that want us to go off the beaten path. And it's oh so prevalent. Oh so prevalent. You can't deny it. And it's going to happen to you as well, watching this at some point or another. Not a threat, not a warning, it's a promise. It's a promise because it happened to him equally as it did to me.
Yeah. Well, and it feels ridiculous talking like that, right? Like for me, I'm like, oh, there's a trickster out there, that because I don't like having a victim's mindset. You know, I like to take total responsibility for everything. Yeah, and so I can look at the politicians of our time and go, well, I put a lot of stock into that politician, you know, hoping that what he was saying at the podium or she was saying at the podium is going to take my personal living situation into a different direction. You know, interest rates are going to go down, or you know, the dollar's going to go up, or you know, this cost is going to get cut, and then turn around and find out that everything that they were saying wasn't true. Why wouldn't there be something on a spiritual nature, right? Like, so I don't have any problem giving credit where credit's due in the physical world, but when it comes to the spiritual world, I get kind of shady because I'm still new to it all, right? I'm still, as far as total faith in a power greater than myself, and actually turning my will and my life over to that through prayer and talking about it openly and all that stuff. You know, I'll have 18 months. I had 11 years. I relapsed through the course of my, you know, I really went downhill after my father died,
Mm-hmm.
and then got sober again, and I'll have 18 months on Monday.
Congratulations. Congratulations,
And
bro. I'm so
yeah,
proud of you.
thanks. You know, and I definitely didn't do it. Like I had to call on a power greater than myself to get through it, because I ended up with the same trickery as everybody else, those little blue pills. You know, I was buying street narcotics. I never did get back on heroin or meth or alcohol or anything. It was all just pain pills. But I did end up starting to buy them off the street, and you know, sure enough, I found fentanyl, the cheap little
Fruit Loop,
alternative. Yeah, and it was a rough kick, you know.
I'm
But
sure.
again, back to my wife and my support group, you know, Cameron, uh, my sponsor, everybody just loved me through the whole thing. And went back, introduced myself as a newcomer, and started over fresh, and said, man, there's something I missed the first time, and it happened to be that spiritual growth. You know, I
Yeah.
failed to enrich my spiritual life. Me.
Yeah. I think we all have to go through that at some point or another. And here are my reasonings for saying so. You said yourself, it's learning consistently and just throwing away what doesn't work for you anymore. And then in the process of me, through consistent learning, that we take that M, flip it on its head, it becomes we. So it's a gift ultimately that keeps on giving. I'm with you 100%. Because when I first came here, it was a fact of how do I get better instead of asking how do we get better.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love how your mindset has changed as of thus. You know, when you first came to me and you spoke about that you had been going through a tough time, I'll use that wording, and you didn't know where to start. All I basically said to you from the word go, because the last thing that I want is someone to call me judgmental, because I know I don't like it when the finger is pointed at me.
Yeah.
And I said, the fact is that you admitted your mistake, because it is a mistake, puts you above 20, 30 other people who would say, this happened to me. You took ownership of that. And now, 18 months down the line, you have really broadened your horizons. You've learned the lessons and you carry it with you. Simple in theory, but not so much in practice, because there's always something new every given day.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, what do we really want, right? Like for me, my life is boiled down. I can look back at everything that I've ever done throughout my life. Even as a kid, I was kind of a deep thinker. You know, I was told, you know, like you're an old soul. Yeah, I always hung out with older people. None of that stuff was uncommon, but it's like if I look and I go, what am I trying to figure out here? I've always been trying to figure out the truth about myself, about God, and about life, right? Like what is the truth about me? Because I suffer, and I truly believe I suffer from uh, body dysmorphia, you know, and this idea that whatever you're seeing on the screen, whatever my wife sees when she looks at me, is not what I see, right? Because you can you know, say that I'm handsome or fit or whatever, and I'm like, that's not what I see, right?
Sure.
And it's a real thing. And so I do all this crazy shit to try to see what you see, or see what I think the world expects to see from, you know, a man. Like, what is my idea of a man? And when I look in the mirror and I don't see that, then I go to work trying to make it happen. And
Sure.
it doesn't matter how fit I get. It doesn't matter, you know, what I look like or what I build or any of that stuff. I cut myself short. And now that I know that about me, I can step back and I can listen to the opinions of the people that I trust and go, okay, what they're saying is true, not what this is saying.
Mm.
What Chris is telling me is true. What Avery's telling me is true. What my kids are telling me, that's the truth. And then I can spend less time on what I think, and I can start living according to what they're telling me. You know, what is the truth about life, right? What is the truth about God? Well, what I found is the truth about God is that he exists. That
Absolutely.
I can't tell you for sure that the Bible isn't true. You know, I think there's some great teachings in it, and I'm starting to learn a little bit about the carpenter, but I by no means consider myself a religious person. You know, I'm trying to have my own experience. I've been praying a lot about, you know, who Jesus is and how much because I don't want to mess this up. Right now, I'm open and willing to take that path, and if it's that, what was revealed to me is like, you're in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's where you get yours. You're fine. You're fine in AA. You don't need to go to a church. You don't need to pick up the Bible. Where God has placed me is exactly where I need to be as far as his creation goes. That's what I've been wired for spiritually. Help other alcoholics have their own God experience through my experience and the way that I've gotten there. Right. And the truth about life is that it changes all the time. And whatever meaning I put into it is what it is. Right.
True.
I get to decide the meaning of it.
Yeah.
And for me, I've done a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes, but have I? Right. If I want to know those three things, and I have 11 years of sobriety, and I pick up and it brings me closer to those truths, was it a mistake? I didn't die. I didn't lose my business. I didn't lose the respect of the people that love me. I didn't lose my family or my kids. What I was given was a gift. It was painful.
Very.
And I wouldn't suggest it. You can find it a better way. My hat's off to you. For me, it was tough. It was tough.
Bill, I wanted to share something with you, and you spoke about it, and I didn't prep this whatsoever. But I don't think your body's dysmorphic at all.
Well, it's the way I see myself.
That's what I'm going to get to. I think you have my condition. I think you're Asperger, like me.
What's that?
Asperger is mild autism. You've got the savant autism.
Probably.
You've got the savant autism. Think like Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. That is savant autism. They live in their entire world. They are completely withdrawn, but their intellect is superhuman. Again, referring to Rain Man, where he counts the cards with his brother when they fall out of money, and he always hits at the perfect hit. He knows when to stay because he sees a pattern like this.
Yeah.
Now, Asperger's syndrome is a lot more milder. You can communicate effectively. Why do you think my vocabulary is so advanced for someone my age? And when you have a interest in something which is, it's just also all-consuming. You build an encyclopedic knowledge about it, and you can define it to the nth degree that someone else who may not understand it can understand it from what your definition is from it, and you accrue such more knowledge because of it. And I flip my lid every time when people say autism in any form or function is a disorder. It's not. It's a condition. Yes, people who have been diagnosed as autistic struggle with sociable communication, but once they learn to get accustomed to it, much like what a deaf person does with sign language, or with a blind person being able to traverse the hemisphere by means of a guide dog, we can adapt as well.
Yeah.
But we don't have a self. That's what I'm trying to bridge the gap with what you mentioned with you believe what you see, but you don't always take what other people say of you. That self is completely out of whack. And I get that. But also the reason why I say that is because you're like me. No one can tell a story like what you can. Because I asked you at one point, how is it that you ended up being a contractor and that you got into becoming a tradesman? And you told me that you wrote stories of great depth since school, and that's what got you into building.
Yep. Yeah.
I think truly that is what you have, is you're like me.
Yeah, could be.
And it's a
I'm
beautiful,
open to
beautiful,
it.
beautiful gift, because not only is the fact that your knowledge is so vast, you have unexplainable skill and an unexplainable adaptability towards something without having put so much effort into it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you struggle with finding value in that for yourself? Because I do. Like it really doesn't matter how much I bring to the table. There are certain things that at a deep level I believe are valuable. You know, what my bank account says, I go, oh, that's valuable. And it's such bullshit, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I talk myself through that. It's like it's easy to go to that, like fast. I can go, if I have a certain amount of money, then I'm this amount of valuable right now. But
Exactly.
I I know how to build a house.
Exactly. And that's also another thing. Your mind shoots in 20,000 directions all at the same time. It's difficult to verbalize it most of the time, like with what I'm trying to do here, because you're consistently thinking and threading the same pattern together into a single finite sentence, but it's difficult to do so.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
de-
I get a lot of compliments on my ability to illustrate when I share. You know, making stories very um, understandable and relatable. And I very rarely value that. So what you're saying is probably true, you know, whatever condition. And I appreciate you bringing up the difference between that, because, you know, having 3 kids, I go, how do I want to help them along with their type of thinking, you know?
mm,
And so when they come to me with this type of problem, and something that I've called a disorder for however many years, from this day forward, I'm able to call a condition,
mm.
right? That softens the blow on their ability to view the world. You know, maybe it saves them a decade of what they thought was a disorder, was a condition, and they're able to get through and have a better outlook on themselves quicker.
Well, let me put it this way. What's the difference between a condition and a disorder? A
I have no
condition
idea.
makes you beneficial to yourself, to your family, and to your community. A
Mm,
disorder makes you detrimental to your family, your community, and to yourself.
yeah,
A disorder is Jeffrey Dahmer. A disorder is Ted Kaczynski. A
yeah,
disorder is Jim Jones. But a condition is Richard Branson. A condition is Warren Buffett. A condition is Bill Jorenson. A
yeah,
condition is Chris Nell. That is the difference.
yeah. I
Um,
like that.
that is truly why I get so upset with a lot of people who say this is a disorder and that is a disorder. A thing is only a disorder if it's a detriment. And
Okay.
along with it being a detriment or a problem, you have to take medication for it. You have to take a medication, for example, if you are bipolar, because there's just no way you're going to handle all of your mood swings. It doesn't matter if you're bipolar 1 or bipolar 2. You are going to take medicines in order to elevate the mood, because with bipolar, it goes up and down and up and down and up and down like this. But with what you and I, with our thinking, it doesn't go up and down like this. It goes like this in a chronological fashion. So with like a DNA strand, there's a 45-degree adage to it and not just a
Yep.
90-degree up and down. And that is the difference. And we don't have to take medication for it, but they're trying to prescribe medication for it, like Adderall or Benadryl or Xanax, to contain it just so you can flatline.
Yep.
That is what makes me angry, because you're
Yeah.
killing off that creativity. And
Big time.
it's devilish. It's
Yeah.
devilish to
And
the nth
you can
degree.
treat it. We can treat it without medicating it. Right?
Yeah.
We're living proof exercise, having conversations like this where you're open minded, getting in contact with, you know, God, and having your own experience with that. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, letting go of everything that we think we know is a good place to be, especially if something's not working in your life.
True.
Um,
True. And here's another
the
thing.
ego.
I've hammered on this so many times, and I think you'll agree with me on this, and you'll even have your own wording. We need to eliminate the word fail from our vocabulary in society. Really, we do, because it's too easy to say you failed.
Mhm.
But if you take the word fail and you break it into an acronym, you just took a first action in learning. A lot of us aspire to become a doctor or a banker, but we may not want to be because we don't think we belong in that route. And the chances are more times than 10, if you go to a college to study to become a banker or a lawyer, that you don't enjoy it. But you learned how to, you've enjoyed being a paralegal more, so you went into the paralegal route. You may not have become an accountant, but you are a CPA now because you naturally gravitate towards that. That being said, you eliminate failure out of the equation immediately. You just eliminated what doesn't work for you. Yep. That's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, we try to say either you don't fail, or you don't lose. You either win or you learn, you know.
That's it. That is the difference.
Yeah. It's great.
I'm humbled by that. I'm humbled by that revelation every given day, and I'm sounding overdramatic saying so because, you know, you and I have this same history in which we were the outcasts of our peers. And I think the good thing that arose from it in adulthood, you're a lot more mature than I in that regard, is that we are always persistently learning. Mm-hmm. And we are expanding that toolbox in recovery, in business, and in life. And I bet you more times out of 10, the outliers who pegged that label on you of being the outcast are now the ones who are either coming to you for advice or they are looking for a job.
Funny how that works, right? You know, because I mean, why were we labeled? Because we didn't think on that plane. Like I couldn't sit in a desk. Sorry. And instead of, and you know, it's one of the reasons that we don't have our kids in public school. You know, my oldest is in 6th grade and he's in a charter school now, but he was in a Montessori his whole life. You know, my other kids are still in Montessori. They don't have, in Utah, they don't have Montessori after 5th grade. So we had to find an alternative.
Montessori,
but, yeah. And so, you know, for me, it wasn't okay for them to be strapped down to a desk like I was. It didn't do me any good.
And are they active?
Yeah. Yeah. Kids are great. Kids are amazing, and try to not limit their thinking the way that mine was, so that there's not all these conditions that they have that make them feel like they're not proper just because they can't sit still for a while, or a certain book doesn't interest them, or whatever. And they all learn at their own pace, the way that they learn. And I don't get to decide what that is. They get to decide what that is. Their wiring decides what that is. And I get to stand back and watch it. I get to keep them off the edge so they don't fall off, but it's up to them how close they get, right? Like, and I don't like to be a helicopter parent because of all that stuff you're talking about. My own experience with being strapped down, limited, and then force-fed a belief that wasn't even true.
Yeah. And I can't have anything. I can't add to that because that's exactly what happened to me as well. I was in a not a public school, but one that had one-dimensional thought when I was when I was a teenager, because I lived in another province and I was in what is called a dual medium school. So in short, it's like Montessori, but this was before Montessori came to South Africa. So I was in a dual medium school up until the age of 13, and then I went into what was originally a private school, but it was actually working through the Department of Education and the Teachers Union. Terrible stuff. So in any event, come where I turned 16, I went into a K-12 English prep school, and it was joyous. It was joyous because for the first time we were given the opportunity to think for ourselves. And we were thrown into this Valhalla of knowledge, into this Valhalla of experience. All we had to do was sample it for ourselves and base our own understanding. Yeah, sure, there were things like peer pressure. There were things like social class. But ultimately, that was the first taste of real freedom.
Yeah.
And I wish there were others my age who had experienced it like what I had. But unfortunately, the battle of the social classes just, they couldn't bridge the twain because of
Mhm.
history, a repressive history, which, in my opinion, was never supposed to be. If they had just let colonialization happen, maybe we would have been on par with the UK, or we would have been on par with even the Commonwealth, dare I say. But it's
Yeah.
because of this fact that we are looking, and I'm talking, we as South Africans tend to look at life with a shutter. That's why they're 20 years behind on everyone else.
Yeah.
And that is what ignites a culture war. Keep them stupid, you're controlling them. But if they think for themselves, oh my goodness, you've got a weapon on hand.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
what I'm striving to be at 32 years of age. Is
Yeah.
to be a weapon and not just another shutter.
Yeah. We only get one shot, right? And once you figure out where your value lies and what you consider valuable, there's really only one direction. You never get off the path again. For me, I never get off this path of of you know, raising children to be better than I am, to working on being a better person than I was yesterday, finding another person to help. I never get off of it, because once I've been called to it and I've been woken up, in a sense, you never get to go back to sleep. It's so painful to fall back asleep that it's almost unbearable, right? And so God calls us individually, because that's the only way that he can speak to each and every one of us, is through other people. And
Very
so
much.
there's something that you say that some only your vibration is going to hear. It's like, I think of it like this. I think of it like God is right here, and there's universal laws that govern him to stay right there. He never comes any closer, and he never goes any further away. And God lives in a vibrational plane, and my thinking and my behavior puts me on a vibrational plane. And depending on where I'm at and how much work I'm putting into it, brings me either closer or further away from God. My vibration goes up and down, his stays the same. And sometimes our vibrational planes unite, and I'm
Yeah.
in a complete state of unbelievable bliss, where I truly understand that finances don't matter, that I'm healthy. I can feel the health that's going through my body, that I'm on a spiritual plane, that I'm blessed beyond belief. I'm on this level of vibration, and I'm connected with God. And then something happens and I'm knocked off of that. But it's not God that moved. It's me and my vibration. And so I learn the things that put me in that vibrational plane with God, and I try to work on staying in that place. But as a self-centered flesh living human, right, I there's a tolerance level for it. And so
Sure.
whatever worked yesterday doesn't work today. My vibration changes, and I have to, it's like that saying, rinse, do every day. I have to continuously do stuff. And as God reveals things that I'm ready for, then I'm able to do the work to get me on that next level of vibration that brings me closer and closer to him, to help me explain that to people that are lost in the same way that I was. My entire existence is to take information from somebody like you, and the information God's given you, apply it in my own life, and then share that with somebody that's on that same path, to show them how to get to the next level that they're looking for, right? Um,
Absolutely.
it's so important for us to have somewhere to go.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it's
But
that primitive wiring we are talking about.
absolutely. And there's a beautiful saying which comes from my country, which is pick the person you travel with long before you have chosen the route. Meaning, be careful the people who you take with you. Be careful what you let into, but you can't afford to travel alone. And that is also how I believe God speaks to us, through
Yeah,
the various people. You can learn equally as much from a person who has made a mistake than a person who is going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Just different wording. But you're absolutely right. Opening up yourself to being a blessing towards another person who might be in need, and it ultimately comes back to you at the end of the day. It's like
It's universal law.
universal law, the universal law, and it works in 360-degree circumference. Even a better wording, it's the circle of life. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the volume knob or the tuning knob of an AM and an FM. It's all interconnected. And if you think that we're sounding hippy dippy, go your
maybe
bones.
we are. Yeah. We're at a point where we're not going to apologize for our belief in God anymore. It takes me away from my purpose, right? It's just another tool for that negative energy to try to convince me that I'm not on track, right? When I start apologizing for talking about, my misunderstanding but belief in God, that God exists and I'm not him, and then I start feeling bad or embarrassed or whatever about it. Maybe I am new to this whole thing and I'm not as well versed in all the knowledge stuff about God, right? Maybe I'm not a scholar when it comes to God, but I don't have to be, right? I'm willing to have my own experience. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I'm not, I just want to do what's the right thing for me so that our species can progress in the right direction, so that we're not, beating each other down. That, there's a ton of negativity in the world, right? And we all have a lot to be grateful for. And one of the things, if you're ever struggling with gratitude, there's a little tool that you can use to help, kind of pass that along. One of the things that I think that we've all done is help another person where they were truly grateful for the help that we've given them. There were experiences that we gave to people. Just even if it's just the old lady you're getting something off the top shelf for. Sometimes I have to go back and I have to remember those things and think about the people that were truly grateful for my help. The tire that I changed, the money that I gave, the helping somebody move. There's all these situations, the insight that I gave to somebody that opened them up to a new experience and brought them closer to God. All those things, if I can think about their face and their moment of true gratitude, oh yeah, it's not about me. Anytime I start making it about me, I'm knocked off course. Yeah. Right? I'm just a tool here. I'm part of it. And when I get knocked off course, then that selfishness starts creeping in, and that's where fear comes from. When I'm completely focused on me, I'm full of fear. And fear is a dangerous place. We were talking about, Jordan Peterson and being a good man. When you're a man full of fear, you're a dangerous man, because a fearful man is dangerous because he's unpredictable.
Very.
He's acting on ravenous instinct. We do insane shit out of fear. And that's the only defect of character that I have. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we talk about letting go of shortcomings and character defects, right? We let go of those things. Well, there's one defect in my character, and it's fear. All my other shortcomings come out of that one defect of character. Every time I lie, cheat, or steal, it's based in some type of fear. When I run and hide and change situations, it's based in some type of fear. Everything that's wrong with me comes out of some type of fear. And when I give people things to be grateful for, and I can go back and I can remember that, I'm no longer living in fear, I'm living in love, right? Connection.
Very much.
That vibration of God that we try to get on.
I'm going to ask you something. Have you ever?
I don't know how we got there, but sorry.
No. You. That was beautiful. That was beautiful, and I couldn't have put it even better myself. You also host a talk show, which I was very blessed to have guested on, the Other Side of Hell podcast, available on YouTube and where else you get your podcasts. Yeah. If you guys haven't seen it, really, you'll enjoy it. It occurs in real time. It's Willie and Cameron who talk about a various myriad subjects, rather, revolving around sobriety and recovery. And they also have a section which is called War Stories, where people like myself appear and tell our story about what we faced, how we overcame it, and what we do to put a positive foot forward. And they break it down as a result based on their experiences, their hope, and the like as well, to inspire you to try being the operative word of recovery. But the question I'm going to ask you is, have you ever thunk of becoming an inspirational speaker?
No, I am an inspirational speaker. It's not professionally. Like,
Well, would you think about
yeah.
taking it professionally if you were provided the opportunity?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I would. I'll go wherever God takes me.
Okay,
Is where
that
I'm
is
at
the
today.
definitive answer. That's the
Yeah.
definitive answer. Yeah.
You know, and I struggle with it. You know, I'm, like you said earlier, you know, I'm a builder. I question whether that's the right profession or not because of what I talked about. You know, all these things are connected, right? It's so
Yeah,
crazy.
absolutely.
You know, I don't value the fact that I'm a builder and I can do things that a lot of people can't, that I'm really good at it. I value the fact that I make money doing that. And then the value of that is attached to how much money comes in based on that thing. And so I have to really be careful and go, okay, what is the purpose of this, right? And so for me, if God decides to take me the professional speaking route, or you know, a counselor route, you know, I've thought about working with kids. I recently kind of started considering, you know, maybe I should be a sheriff. I've never got into law enforcement. You know, I've talked with Avery about that, but God keeps me in this plane right here, right? This is my humility bubble.
Okay.
And there's a certain amount of stuff that fits inside of this humility space, right? Once there's too much money, that thing gets too big. And I start forgetting about what's on the other end of that. You know, over here is purpose, God, family. And now I'm overweighted with money and my humility bubble is too big. And I'm no longer in balance. And I start forgetting who I am. And God puts me back right here. If I get too little money, or I get too little recovery, or too little of exercise, then it starts to shrink. And now my world's confined. And now I'm feeling claustrophobic and I'm no longer in balance. Everything's too tight and I'm not thinking about the big picture anymore. And so whenever it gets too little of anything, God puts it back into balance. And this is where God keeps me financially, spiritually, emotionally. All those things are, you know, I'm built. This is my safe, you know, if you will. There's only so much that can fit in it. And if it's too little, it's too empty. And so, and that's kind of the way I look at it. And I just travel through my life this size. So, you know, if I was a professional speaker or a counselor or anything else, my life I would live exactly the same way that I am, you know, in whatever comfort level I'm at, because this is what my ego can take. And God does a pretty good job of keeping my ego right where it needs to be, regardless of what I think. It doesn't matter what I think. God gives me what's good for me, not what I want, what's good for me. And maybe you've heard Jordan Peterson talk about that. It's one of the things that I got from him is, you know, I can have what's good for me. And I think about what's good for me, not what I want, what's good for me. What would my Father have me have?
Yeah.
According to what I'm ready for.
And you know what? You mentioned on something which I would have touched on, but I'm glad that it came out of your mouth first. And I'm going to do it in a melodramatic fashion. And forgive me, I'm not rubbing my eyes out of boredom. I've been trying to wipe tears away. My name is Chris Nell, and I'm addicted to humility.
Good.
I'm addicted to humility. I thought the sun shone where it wasn't supposed to when I was in show business. The fact that I have this, the fact that I could expound on almost any subject, courtesy of a classic education and a psychological superiority, I think I was the bee's knees and I got humbled badly. And I said this to Bill as well last year when we were recording Other Side of Hell. If I look at my life now versus where I was last year, I would have punched myself in the mouth. I had my head stuck where it didn't belong. Forgive the nasty finger, but I'm using it to illustrate my head being stuck up a cranium,
Right.
stuck up my rectum. It's called cranial rectal syndrome. Cranial
Syndrome.
cranial rectal inversion.
The only cure is a pop.
But at the same time as well, I forgot where the we came in as I only think about me. And I said this to Bopane as well. Where I am now at this phase of my life, it's not more about me anymore. It's about we. If there's any legacy that I leave behind for myself and of myself, for my kids, for my wife, and for my community, is the fact that I was just a good man who always thought of others instead of himself. And I think that's something that my grandfather would have been proud of, because even though he's not here anymore, it's been 10 years since his passing, people still talk about him every day.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, humility is a great thing.
How humble he was, and how he never stopped thinking about other people, helped with charity drives for the needy, and even ran for politics. He was a conservative. How he ran as a conservative for his local ward, helped think about fiscal matters for the benefit of the community so that everyone could have running water, everyone could have electricity. No one got to work late, because at that time, we're talking in the 1950s, everyone traveled by train, if not by car. How they had better accessibility from point A to point B if they didn't have a car. That's the kind of things which separates the boys from the men, and turns boys into men as a result. And that is what I'm thinking about right now, is the we and not the me.
Yeah.
And that's what you have touched on, which I adore no end.
Thanks.
No, I think there's a big path playing out for you, my friend. There's a big story still to play. And I can understand there's more questions now, that you have more questions than answers. But believe me when I say I'm excited for you, because
Thanks.
I jokingly say to people, we are in the university of life. Every book we read, every encounter we have, it's part of the university. And you only graduate at final curtain call, when you say goodbye to this life. And I'm sure there's going to be times where you think, why me? But I know you're going to say, try me. Bill, you're a man of many talents, and I want to really thank you for the difference that you have played in my life ever since I've come to have met you. Thank you for broadening my horizons, and you're a stand-up fella, and I'm proud to call you a friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate being invited on here, and looked upon and reminded, by yourself and people like you, the value that I bring that has nothing to do with what I've built, how much money I have, who I'm attached to. Has zero to do with the spiritual currency that we're, exchanging right now. And, there's, I'm very grateful to be reminded of that. And you being in Africa, me being in Utah, it's crazy to me.
And I forgot to say, American AF you are, my friend. American AF.
Yeah, I definitely am.
Folks, I really want to invite you as well. If you are looking for answers, and you are struggling with addiction, and you are quote unquote sober curious, or you want to try a taste of freedom, I want to cordially invite you to listen to Will Jorenson and Cameron on the Other Side of Hell podcast. New episodes air weekly on YouTube. You can even hear them on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You're more than welcome to follow them as well. I've got the _ here on Instagram. You can Look up the Other Side of Hell pod. Let me just get that wording right. The Other Side of Hell. Here it is. The Other Side of Hell. Oh, come on, you bugger. Technology, I hate you so much. The Other Side of Hell.
I think you got it right. Other Side of Hell pod.
Other Side of Hell pod. The Other Side of Hell, and it's Underside of Hell _ pod. Where's it now? Or you can even look up Willie at Willie, WILLY, J, 0L0L0. So it's 3 L's, 1 0. And now I've got the underscore here. It's Other Side of Hell _ recovery pod.
Oh,
and you're more than welcome to listen to those episodes. And what I love about that podcast, especially where Will is concerned, they don't judge, they share, and it's like a conversation. So it's not clinical by any given means. Some of our mutual friends, apart from myself, have appeared on there. There's Forrest Ferguson, Marty Evans, Daniela from Recovery, Sober Soul Recovery is on there as well. Tim Lodgen also recently did a war story. Laurie Anderson. You will be enriched. Wow. You'll be enriched beyond the nth degree. And I would like you as well to follow Willie on Instagram. He also shares wonderful insights on his understanding about Constitution, the Bill of Rights, which I'm currently studying now through Hillsdale College. And believe you me, not an easy study. Not an easy study. It's really not an easy study because we don't understand the beauty of liberty whatsoever until you hear it from the eyes from the people who have studied the Constitution from the land of the free and the home of the brave. Without sounding highfalutin, Bill, thank you so much. You have an open invite. Welcome. You're more than welcome back anytime you wish.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to come back. I love talking to you. I listen to you every chance I get because I'm a fan of your voice. I really am. I think you got a great. Love what you talk about, the way you sound. So thanks for all the nice compliments. I'm going to carry it with me today. And
anytime, brother.
We'll start again tomorrow.
Friends forever. Folks, that's Bill Jorenson. Willie Jorenson. He's going to knock my teeth out if I call him Billy one more time. That's that's Will Jorenson. I'm Chris Nell, reminding you that through our collective efforts, you yourself can achieve the perspective of becoming an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit, ultimately your very own army of one, an apex predator. God bless, guys. We'll see you in the near future. Bye-bye.